Later that day, Maria stood in the central plaza as thousands of citizens gathered. The resistance leaders brought Diaz out in handcuffs. The man who had caused so much suffering looked small and afraid now. "People will decide your fate," the resistance leader announced. "We will have fair trials and rebuild our nation with justice." Maria watched as the sun set on their first day of freedom. The city still burned in places. There was much to rebuild. But for the first time in 10 years, people walked the streets without fear. A small girl approached Maria and handed her a flower. "My mother says you're a hero." Maria knelt down and placed her hand on the child's shoulder. "No, the real heroes are the ordinary people who kept hope alive all these years. Now we all have work to do." As darkness fell, lights began coming back on across the city. The final assault had succeeded. A new chapter was beginning. The blue-green planet filled the viewing screen as the small spacecraft approached. After 6 months traveling through the darkness of space, Earth looked more beautiful than ever. Commander Sarah Chen checked the systems one final time. Everything worked perfectly. Behind her, the 5 other crew members prepared for the most important message in human history. "Are we ready?" Sarah asked. Dr. Patel nodded, his face serious. "The package is secure." For 3 decades, scientists had searched for a cure to the Gray Plague. The disease had appeared suddenly 20 years ago and spread to every corner of Earth. It didn't kill quickly. Instead, it slowly weakened people over years until their bodies gave up. Half of Earth's population was infected now. The cure had been found in an unexpected place, a research station on Mars. A team of scientists discovered that bacteria growing in the red soil contained a compound that could stop the disease. This mission had brought the first successful batch of medicine back to Earth. It was humanity's last hope. "Mission Control, this is Starlight 1, Sarah said into her microphone. "We have visual contact with Earth and are beginning approach." The reply came seconds later, filled with static but clear enough. "Starlight 1, we copy. The world is waiting for you." The crew felt the weight of that statement. 3 billion sick people were counting on them. As the spacecraft entered Earth's atmosphere, warning lights flashed across the control panel. Temperature readings climbed rapidly. "Shield 4 is failing," reported Lee, the engineer. His fingers moved quickly over his controls. Sarah stayed calm. "Backup systems?" "Online, but stressed. We're coming in too fast." The spacecraft shuddered. Outside, flames surrounded them as friction heated the air to thousands of degrees. "Adjust our angle," Sarah ordered. "Use the emergency thrusters." The craft turned slightly, easing some of the heat. The warning lights continued to flash, but fewer now. "Landing site in view," announced Kamala, the pilot. "Desert conditions look good." Below them stretched the Nevada landing zone. It had been built specially for this mission, far from populated areas but close enough to quickly distribute the medicine. As they descended through the clouds, Sarah saw something unexpected. Thousands of lights surrounded the landing area. People, more than she had ever seen, gathered in one place. "Mission Control, why are there civilians at the landing site?" she asked. "They came to witness humanity's moment," came the reply. "Every major city has viewing parties. The whole world is watching." The pressure on the crew grew even heavier. At 10,000 feet, another alarm sounded. The landing gear hydraulics were failing. Without them, the spacecraft would crash. "Doctor," Patel looked at Sarah, his eyes wide with fear. "If we crash—" "We won't," Sarah interrupted. She turned to Lee. "Manual override." Lee didn't hesitate. He opened a panel beneath his station and pulled an emergency lever. Somewhere below them, mechanical systems engaged. The landing gear extended and locked with a heavy thud. The spacecraft touched down hard but safely. Dust billowed around them as the engines powered down. For a moment, the crew sat in silence, letting the reality sink in. They had made it home. "Package status?" Sarah asked. Dr. Patel checked the sealed container that held humanity's salvation. Secure and intact. Outside, vehicles approached. Medical teams waited to take the medicine to production facilities where it would be copied and distributed worldwide. The crew prepared to open the hatch. Before they did, Sarah gathered them in a circle. "What we did here will be remembered forever," she said simply. "Let's finish our mission." The hatch opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Bright sunlight poured in. The sound of cheering reached them. Thousands of voices joined together in hope. Dr. Patel carried the container down the ramp. Medical teams rushed forward to meet him. As the precious cargo transferred hands, the cheering grew louder. Sarah stepped onto Earth soil, feeling its solid presence beneath her feet after months in zero gravity. A small girl broke through the security line and ran to her. "My mom is sick," the girl said, her eyes serious. "Did you bring the medicine that will make her better?" Sarah knelt down to meet the child's gaze. "Yes," she answered. "The doctors will make enough for everyone who needs it." The girl hugged her tightly, then was gently led away by security personnel. Later that night, as the medicine began its journey to hospitals worldwide, Sarah watched from a window as people celebrated in the streets. Candlelight processions moved through cities. Strangers embraced each other with tears of joy. For the first time in 20 years, Earth had more than just survival. It had hope. This was humanity's moment. Not just the cure, but what people had done to achieve it. Working together across borders, sacrificing for strangers, refusing to surrender to despair. Sarah smiled as she watched the celebrations. The stars seemed brighter tonight. Mina sat down on the floor of the docking bay and began to open her backpack. The Koldarians watched, weapons still half raised, as she pulled out a small container. "I brought snacks," she announced, opening the container to reveal small, round objects. "Would anyone like a cookie? My mom made them this morning." The warriors looked at each other in bewilderment. This was not how any species had ever responded to their raids before. "Enough of this nonsense," Taiwan said finally. "Child, you will tell us about Earth's defenses, or—" "Your ship has a problem with the engine," Mina interrupted, taking a bite of her cookie. "I could hear it when we docked. It makes a funny sound it's not supposed to make." The captain froze. There had indeed been an issue with the quantum drive that they had been trying to repair for days. How could this child know? "Take her to the command deck," Taiwan ordered suddenly. "I want to know what game the humans are playing." As Do-hyun moved to escort Mina, she carefully repacked her cookies, took her stuffed animal by the paw, and followed happily, chatting about how interesting the ship was and how she'd never been on a real pirate vessel before. None of the Koldarians noticed the small red light blinking in the eye of the stuffed animal she carried. Retry SF. The command deck of the Shadowfang buzzed with activity as the small human child was brought in. Koldarian crew members stopped their work to stare at the unusual visitor. Some clicked their mandibles in confusion while others whispered among themselves. Captain Taiwan settled into his command chair, its size exaggerated compared to the tiny human standing before him. Mina looked around with wide eyes, taking in the blinking lights and strange technology of the alien ship. "This is amazing," she said, turning in a small circle. "We don't have ships this big on Earth yet." "Child," Taiwan began, leaning forward. "Why would humans send a youngling to face pirates? Do they value their young so little?" Mina sat cross-legged on the floor, placing her stuffed animal beside her. "It's actually the opposite. They sent me because they value me very much." The captain's compound eyes narrowed. "Explain." "Well," she said, reaching into her backpack, "the grown-ups said sending warships would be like using a hammer to kill a fly." She pulled out her container of cookies again and placed it on the floor. "They said it would be rude." First Officer June stepped forward. "Rude? We came to raid your outpost, not exchange pleasantries." Mina nodded seriously. "I know. That's why I'm here to talk instead." She opened the container. "Are you sure nobody wants a cookie? They're really good." One of the younger crew members moved closer, antenna twitching with curiosity. "Sungmin, step back," ordered the captain. "The food may be poisoned." Mina giggled. "That would be silly. I'm eating them too." She took a bite of one cookie to demonstrate. Captain Taiwan watched her carefully. Something was wrong about this entire situation, but he couldn't determine what. The child seemed genuinely unafraid. "How do you speak our language, Yaori?" he asked suddenly. "You have no translation device." "Oh, I learned it," Mina replied simply. "I'm good with languages. I know 7 now. Koldarian was fun to learn because of all the clicking sounds." She demonstrated by making a series of clicks with her tongue. Several crew members shifted uncomfortably. It had taken them years to master their own complex language. "Impossible," muttered Security Chief Do-hyun. "No human mind could grasp our language so quickly." "Why not?" asked Mina. "It's just patterns, like your ship systems. You have some really interesting patterns in your engine room." Taiwan sat up straighter. "You have not been to our engine room." "No, but Mr. Whiskers can feel it." She patted her stuffed animal. "He says you have damage in the quantum membrane. It's why your ship makes that funny humming noise." Across the command deck, a display suddenly flickered and went dark. Officer Jiho tapped at the controls frantically. "Captain, we've lost connection to the lower sensor array," he reported with concern. Taiwan's gaze never left the child. "What do you know about this?" Mina hugged her stuffed animal closer. "Mr. Whiskers sometimes affects electronics. The grown-ups say he's special." Another screen blinked off, then came back on showing different information than before. "Captain, something is scanning our systems," called out Officer Hana from her station. "I can't block it." The child smiled gently. "The grown-ups just want to know what kind of pirates you are. There are different kinds, you know. Some are really bad, and some are just looking for food and supplies." Taiwan stood, looming over the small human. "We are Koldarian raiders. We have conquered 12 systems. We take what we want when we want it." "That sounds like the really bad kind," Mina said sadly. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small silver ball. "That's why they gave me this." Do-hyun raised his weapon instantly. "Put that down." "It's okay," Mina said calmly. "It's just nanites. They're really tiny robots that can take things apart. The grown-up said I should only use it if you're mean to me." She rolled the ball between her fingers. "But you haven't been mean yet, so they're sleeping." Throughout the ship, more systems began to flicker or shut down. Alarms sounded, briefly before being silenced. "What is happening to my ship?" demanded Taiwan, his voice rising. "Proportional response," Mina explained, the words sounding rehearsed. "That's what the grown-ups called it. They said to tell you that whatever you plan to do to us, we can do back to you, but much bigger." She stood up and brushed Cookie crumbs from her jumpsuit. "But they also said to tell you that we'd rather be friends than enemies." The stuffed animal in her arm suddenly blinked its eyes, though none of the Koldarians noticed. "Captain," called Officer Jiho urgently. "Long-range scans are showing multiple objects moving in the outer system. They weren't there before." Mina smiled innocently. "Those are probably the grown-ups, checking to make sure I'm okay." She looked directly at Taiwan. "They get worried when I'm away too long." For the first time in his long career of piracy, Captain Taiwan felt something unfamiliar, creeping up his exoskeleton. Doubt. Captain Taiwan's patience was wearing thin. The command deck of the Shadowfang had fallen unusually quiet. Even the normal hum of the ship's systems seemed muted, as if the vessel itself was holding its breath. "Enough games," Taiwan said, bringing one clawed hand down hard on the arm of his command chair. "You will tell us about Earth's defenses now, child, or we will take the information by force." Mina looked up at the towering insectoid alien without fear. She stroked the head of her stuffed animal, Mr. Whiskers, as if comforting it rather than herself. "That wouldn't be very nice," she said simply. "And it wouldn't work anyway." First, Officer June stepped forward, his mandibles clicking rapidly in irritation. "Our scanners show your Mars outpost has minimal defenses. We could destroy it with a single blast." Mina nodded thoughtfully. "That's because the real defenses aren't around Mars." She sat cross-legged on the floor again, placing Mr. Whiskers in her lap. "They're around your ship right now." A nervous murmur ran through the crew. Officer Jiho frantically checked his sensor readings. Captain, still nothing on scanners, but... He hesitated. 3 more systems just went offline. Something is interfering. With our ship. Mina continued as if she hadn't heard the report. You have a really interesting ship. The quantum drive uses fold technology from the HFY sector. Did you steal that too? Captain Taiwan's compound eyes widened. The HFY technology was a closely guarded secret, acquired during a raid 2 cycles ago. How could you possibly know that? Taiwan demanded. Mr. Whiskers told me, Mina replied, patting the stuffed animal. She pressed a small hidden button on its ear. Suddenly, the stuffed animal's eyes glowed blue. A holographic display erupted from them, filling the center of the command deck with a 3-dimensional map of the entire Shadowfang. Every deck, every room, every system was perfectly rendered in glowing blue light. That's impossible, whispered Security Chief Du Hyun. Those are internal scans. Mr. Whiskers is special, Mina explained. He's been mapping your ship since we arrived. The hologram shifted, now showing red points throughout the ship's systems. The red spots are where you have problems, Mina explained. That big one near the engines is the worst. The grown-ups say it could cause a containment failure if you try to jump to high speed. Captain Taiwan stared at the display in shock. His engineers had been trying to locate that exact problem for days without success. Mina reached into her pocket and pulled out the small silver sphere again. This is more interesting, though. Want to see what it does? Before anyone could stop her, she pressed the sphere gently. It rose from her palm and hovered in the air. Then it split into 2 identical spheres, then 4, then 8, soon dozens. Of tiny silver balls floated around her head like a strange metal halo. They're called nanites, Mina explained. They're really, really small robots that work together. The sphere cloud drifted toward a vacant control panel. As the crew watched in horrified fascination, the panel began to disassemble. Screws untightened themselves. Metal components separated. Wiring unwound. In less than a minute, the entire panel had been reduced to its individual parts, all floating in perfect formation in the air. They can take apart anything, Mina said casually. But they can put it back together too. As she spoke, the components began reassembling, eventually returning the panel to its original state. The nanites reformed into a single sphere that floated back to her hand. There are billions of them in here, she said, holding up the sphere. The grown-ups said they could take apart your whole ship in about 20 minutes if needed. Captain Taiwan had faced many enemies across many star systems, but never had he felt so completely outmatched. This child, with her innocent smile and strange toys, had somehow neutralized his entire warship. What do you want? He asked finally, his voice quieter than before. The hologram from Mr. Whiskers changed again, now showing Earth's solar system. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of small points of light appeared throughout the display, surrounding the planets in layers of defenses. This is what's really out there, Mina said. The grown-ups didn't want to use them because they said it would be... What was the word? She thought for a moment. Oh yes, excessive. Security Chief Do Hyun stared at the display, his weapon hanging forgotten at his side. There are more defense platforms than stars in the sky, he murmured. Mina nodded. Earth has been protecting itself for a long time. Pirates have come before. She reached into her backpack again and pulled out a small crystal, glowing with stored data. The grown-up said to give you this, she said, holding it out to Captain Taiwan. It has maps of places where you can go that humans don't mind. And information about trade if you want to try that instead of stealing. The command deck was completely silent as Captain Taiwan slowly reached out and took the crystal from her tiny hand. The Shadowfang hung in space near Mars, its engines humming softly as the crew prepared for departure. On the command deck, Captain Taiwan held the small data crystal in his claw, turning it over thoughtfully. The blue light from the crystal reflected in his compound eyes. First Officer Jun approached cautiously. The human child's shuttle is prepared for departure, Captain. What are your orders? Taiwan was silent for a moment. In all his years of piracy, he had never retreated without taking something of value. Yet here he was, leaving with nothing but a data crystal and a harsh lesson about underestimating other species. "We will escort the child back to Mars," he said finally, "and then we will leave this system peacefully." Across the command deck, crew members exchanged surprised glances. This was not the fearsome Captain Taiwan they knew. In the docking bay, Mina was packing her backpack. She carefully placed her cookie container inside and zipped it closed. Mr. Whiskers, her stuffed animal, sat watching her with its glassy eyes. Security Chief Du Hyun stood nearby, his posture stiff. He had been assigned to guard the child until her departure, a task he found both confusing and somewhat embarrassing. "Your ship is really cool," Mina said, looking up at the towering insectoid. "I've never been on a real pirate ship before." Du Hyun shifted uncomfortably. "It is a warship, not a toy," he said gruffly. "I know," Mina replied, picking up Mr. Whiskers. "But it's still cool. I'll tell all my friends about it when I get home." Captain Taiwan entered the docking bay, followed by several officers. He approached Mina with measured steps. "The data crystal you provided," he began. "It contains trade routes and educational materials about humans." Mina nodded. "The grown-ups said you might want to try trading instead of stealing. They said it's safer in the long run." Taiwan's mandibles clicked softly. "And if we choose to ignore this advice, if we return with more ships, then they won't send me next time," Mina said simply, her voice suddenly serious despite her childlike appearance. "They'll send the big ships instead." The captain stared at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "I understand." He turned to Do Hyun. "Escort her to her shuttle." As Mina walked toward her small craft, she stopped and turned back. "Oh, I almost forgot." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metal disc. "This is for you, Captain. It's a communicator if you ever want to talk to us again." Taiwan accepted the disc cautiously. "You are an unusual diplomat, small human." Mina smiled brightly. "That's what the grown-ups say too. They think it's funny when pirates meet me, instead of them." The child boarded her shuttle, waving goodbye through the viewport as the door sealed shut. The Koldarians watched as the small craft detached from the Shadow Fang and began its journey back to Mars. "Captain," called Officer Jiho suddenly. "The shuttle, it's changing." On the view screen, the small plane shuttle seemed to shimmer. Its outer hull transformed, revealing sleek lines and advanced propulsion systems that had been hidden before. The craft accelerated away at incredible speed, far beyond what should have been possible for a vessel its size. "It was disguised," whispered Do Hyun in disbelief. Before anyone could respond, the ship's communication system activated. A new voice filled the command deck, deep, authoritative, and unmistakably human. "Captain Taiwan of the vessel Shadowfang, this is Admiral Sung of Earth Defense Fleet. Our weapons have been locked on your position throughout this encounter. Mina reports that you've chosen wisely." The view screen shifted to show what had been hiding beyond Mars, a fleet of ships each larger and more advanced than the Shadowfang, arranged in perfect formation. "They were cloaked," gasped Officer Hana. "Our sensors never detected them." Admiral Sung continued. "The data crystal Mina provided contains everything you need to operate peacefully in sectors adjacent to human space. We would prefer cooperation over conflict, Captain." Taiwan gripped the arms of his command chair. "Understood, Admiral. We will be departing your system immediately." As the transmission ended, First Officer Jun approached the captain. "Sir, what do we tell the other raider fleets about Earth?" Taiwan's eyes narrowed as he watched the child's transformed shuttle dock with the Martian outpost. "Tell them this," he said grimly. "If humans send a child to face you, run. It means they don't consider you worth their time." He paused. "And it means what they could send instead would be much, much worse." The Shadowfang turned away from Mars and accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. As they passed Jupiter, Taiwan inserted the data crystal into a reader. Information about human culture, history, and trade opportunities filled the screen. At the very end was a personal message. "Thank you for the cookie, Captain. I hope we can be friends. Mina." For the first time in many cycles, the feared pirate, Captain almost smiled. "Retry Claude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses."